I was completely surprised to find only days later that the professor called me to his office, and he had labeled across the top of my works the words blasphemous and sacrilege. He was extremely upset and threatened to dismiss me from the program, were it not for the interference of another professor who stood in on my behalf and suggested that perhaps my conclusions, though upsetting, still fit the criteria for the paper. I was spared. However, I was extraordinarily disillusioned. I felt that the university was the best place in which we could pursue openness and challenge the mainstream. I was wrong. Finding no recourse, I then approached UFO organizations. I approached, and at that time they were not known as New Age, but I approached the Love and Light centers. I approached science fiction writers. I sent documents. I sent manuscripts. And I asked them all to please take a look at what we had discovered, hoping that someone somewhere would be open-minded and would expose our work to others. There was a gentleman who was a science fiction author, and he wrote back simply, "It is wonderful stuff. It is the stuff of myth and legend. It is not worthy of serious examination." An organization in southern Arizona, very prominent in its time, suggested that it was also wonderful stories, the stuff of myth and legend, and not worthy of serious examination. In short, I spent nearly a year attempting to tell the story, to present the documentation of the hidden history of planet Earth. I was rebuffed. I was rejected. In fact, I was treated as some sort of a scourge. It was as if I had presented the most blasphemous and sacrilegious thing one could imagine. I was very upset. I vowed at that time with my brothers that we would continue the story. We would share it with the primitives, with the savages. I was able to travel the country. I went down to New Zealand and Australia. I worked with the Aborigines and the Maoris down there. I worked with Mexican Indians and African Zulu shamans who came to the United States. And it was interesting because the primitive world was very open to the concept that we had been deluded, that we had been deceived, because they too had grown up with the same concepts. Perhaps it is because the primitives of this world have suffered at the hands of the civilized people. The Aborigines in Australia, the Aborigines in Tasmania, the Native Americans in North America have almost been decimated by the civilized worlds who know what the truth is and who simply dismiss and destroy anyone who disagrees.
Hello, I'm Rod Remlin, and the name of my new show is called The Last Outpost. For the next month or so, you will only be listening to reruns of The David Hinkson Show, which were hosted by both Dave and myself between the years 1994 and 1996. The show was aired over Freedom Radio Network and could be heard on various FM and shortwave stations. The subject spectrums covered were as wide and as varied as the guest, which at times were quite colorful to say the least. Upon commencement of my live show, I can only hope to recapture some of the energy which had been generated over those 2 years in order to use that as a stepping off point for this show, The Last Outpost. One final note, this show is made possible by a grant from Wateroz, so please show your support for this show and its one and only sponsor by going to the Wateroz website at wateroz.com, making your selection from one of their many fine mineral waters, and then either purchase from the website directly or call your order in by dialing 1-800-547-2294. Again, that phone number is 800-547-2294. If you decide to call your order in, don't forget to ask for a free promotion kit while you're at it. Hi, I'm Rod Remlin, and the name of my new show is called The Last Outpost, and will soon be airing live programming, so keep checking back for announcements as such sometime over the coming weeks. Also, don't forget to call Wateroz at 800-547-2294 and let them know what you think of the reruns, and make sure you order a bottle or two of the many fine mineral water products they carry. If you mention that you heard this ad on The Last Outpost, you will be given a 5% discount at the time of your order. And now, back to the show.
I was never again going to talk to anyone other than a primitive about the star knowledge until my grandfather became ill. And as he was passing away, as he was dying, he made me promise that I would spend 1 full year again telling the story, telling everyone what we had discovered in our research, what we knew. I simply and honestly did not want to do it. But he elicited a promise, and in February of 1995, I began my 1 year. My grandfather has since passed away. The year, February 1 of 95 to February 1 of 96, has come and gone. I attended numerous lectures and workshops. I gave several appearances. I have delivered 48 workshops and or appearances in 52 weeks. My family and I have traveled the countryside and done nearly 20,000 miles in the year. I was prepared and was expecting to find everyone rejecting the work, writing me off as a raving lunatic. And I will tell you something interesting that occurred in the year that I was on the road. I did every UFO lecture circuit appearance I could. I did expos, I did private appearances, and I have to tell you that I was very disillusioned. It appears, and this is my opinion only, it appears that the UFO community in general is more concerned with its image, more concerned with how it looks and making a dollar than it is in getting the truth. There are a handful of men who I truly believe are trying to find the truth out. But they are being slowed down, they are being hampered by organizations that are disreputable at best. I have found myself oftentimes listed as a keynote speaker at a conference or an appearance which I have never been called for. I have written promoters and have told them I simply would not attend, and they continue to keep our name on the billing. Ladies and gentlemen, please be very careful, because it appears that the UFO community church, and this is an analogy of my own making, is more concerned with its image, more concerned with producing messiahs and gurus and saviors than it is with pursuing the truth. In the primitive societies of this planet, if an individual stands before you and declares himself the anointed one, the messiah, the savior, the guru, the primitives know to walk away from him. For he who really knows, he who is a true teacher, will never declare himself as the one. I am extremely dismayed that there are numerous individuals on the circuit today who declare themselves as the one. It is extraordinarily disheartening to those of us who are trying to tell the truth. My 1 year has come and gone, and the story that I have tried to present, I am going to try to sum up for you very quickly in the next 2 hours. We have in our research discovered that planet Earth is not in the hands of man's institutions. It is not the governments, the churches. It is not the banks. It is not the secret societies. It is not the power players behind the scenes who control the events and the destinies of the people on this planet. My answer as to who truly is in charge begins with not only my own research, but the works of, again, Mr. Sitchin, Bauval, Mr. Hancock, and numerous others. I am sure that most of you are familiar with works that suggest that extraterrestrials have influenced our lives in the past. There are far too many references to UFOs, to dancing lights, to heavenly beings for these stories to be false. Can a primitive man have had the imagination and the technology to create the pyramids and the Sphinx? We know that even with our technology today, we cannot build the pyramids in Egypt, the gates in Mexico, Tiwanaku, Machu Picchu. We cannot replicate that very simple stone structure that these primitives are supposed to have done. Why? I am suggesting, along with numerous other authors, that extraterrestrials have interfered with man's evolution. Not only have they guided us as divinities, they have punished us, tormented us as the demons and the devils of our history. I am going to suggest to each one of you that, by definition, an angel is an extraterrestrial. Extraterrestrial means that it is not of earth. Angels are properly in heaven. By the very same definition, God is an extraterrestrial. Now, whether one chooses to use the word divinity or extraterrestrial, I will leave it to you. But in all the holy books, in all the religious reports and studies, in all of the hieroglyphs and the cuneiforms, the legends of star beings, of divinities, of extraterrestrials who have descended to earth, and who have not only tampered with our evolution, but who are in all actuality responsible for the experiment that is known as man. We have taken the research, the documents, the cuneiforms, the hieroglyphs, the myths, and the legends, and what we have come up is going to astound you. There are 2 star systems in our galaxy that appear to have influenced mankind's evolution and the development of our solar system for billions of years. The first and the most important, because it is the largest and the most powerful star system, is a system that in ancient documents is referred to as Orion. Today we know it as Orion. The Orion star system has a civilization that appears to be billions and billions of years old. Through the research, we have begun to piece together what the beings of the star system Orion must be like. It is possible in the research that we have made wrong estimates, that we have made wrong judgments. But it appears that the Orion star system is populated with a reptilian-type being. It appears that in the early stages, the Orion star system developed much as mankind did. There was a spark, there was a flash, life evolved from a one-cell being to a two-cell to a multi-cell being. The difference between the evolution in the star system Orion and the the solar system we call Earth, is that instead of an ape in the evolutionary formula, the Orion star system uses a reptile. Take a tiny little velociraptor, the same tiny little dinosaur lizard that was the villain in the Jurassic Park movie. And if you plug this little figure into the evolutionary formula, you will end up with a humanoid that is reptilian. And it is this reptilian humanoid, in general, that populated the star system Orion. Originally, it was a male-oriented society. But in time, the queens, the females, came to power in Orion. And as cold-blooded and as ruthless as the warrior kings of Orion were, it appears that the queens were much more calculating, much more devious, and much more deadly.